But first, it's time for the Informer Report. The Trump administration has declared Antifa a terrorist organization. Finally. They're also going to invest Soros and others for funding terrorist organizations. Now, what about CAIR and the Muslim Brotherhood? They definitely need to be added to that list. I wonder if they will cut the funding to universities that employ radical left-wing professors. We'll be hearing about more of this in the weeks to come. The Trump administration wants Bagram Airbase back because of its proximity to China's nuke bases. So China is a threat, but we still allow over 300,000 a year to attend our universities. Something's not adding up here. I'm missing something. So if we were to take over Bagram Airbase again, which the Afghanis have already said no, won't this also make our guys targets again? How much are we going to pay the Taliban to get the base back? How much of that will be used to fund terrorism? The whole idea is just crazy, if you ask me. And I hope we don't do it. You know, if we're worried, it makes no sense to me that we have to take over a base that's closer to China, yet we're still going to allow them here. We're still going to allow them in our universities, and they still have most favored nation status as far as trade goes. Doesn't add up to me. The Attorney General, Pam Bondi, should be fired. That's my opinion. She has shown that she doesn't understand or respect the Constitution by recently saying in an interview, there's free speech and there's hate speech. And there's no place, especially now, especially after what happened to Charlie, for that in our society. Now, I'm quoting her. We will absolutely target you, go after you if you are targeting anyone with hate speech. You know, it was terrible what happened to Charlie, but, you know, he was a big proponent of free speech. I don't think he believed in the concept of hate speech. Who gets to determine what hate speech is? This is a big concern. We really should be paying attention here. You know, she doesn't have that good of a record. Remember, she's not been very good on the Second Amendment. Now it sounds like she's not very good on the First Amendment either. In separate comments made on Fox News last Monday, the Attorney General threatened to prosecute Office Depot for allegedly refusing to print posters with photographs of Kirk for the slain for his vigil. Now, businesses, it's terrible that maybe they're not even-handed, but the government can't tell a private entity they have to do something. We've had enough of that on the left telling us, oh, you have to do this or we're going to sue you. But to have the governor or to have the government come after you, this is concerning. It's definitely a concern. Now, there are things that are beyond the pale, okay? I mean, there are things you can't threaten people. Obviously, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. There is such thing as inciting a riot. So there are things you can't say. But when we go down the avenue of hate speech, that's a concern. That's a problem. Now, she also said that businesses cannot discriminate. Well, if you can't discriminate, then you don't have freedom of association. I think private businesses should be able to discriminate. And I really don't care on what basis they discriminate. I think that's part of being free, and if their decision is a bad one, the public will let them know it. If you want to go and print posters with Charlie's pictures on them for a vigil, you have to, this is her again, she's quoting that if somebody wants to print posters for a vigil, then you have to let them do that. No, if you're a private business and you don't want to do that, you shouldn't have to, just like you shouldn't have to make a cake for a gay couple. She said that you could be prosecuted for refusing to do that. She also added that the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division was looking at such a case with an Office Depot employee. In a statement posted to X, the Attorney General clarified remarks she made Monday suggesting that hate speech was distinct from speech protected under the First Amendment. Now she's backtracking here a little bit. Hate speech that crosses the line into threats of violence is not protected by the First Amendment, and that's true. The whole thing about hate speech is the concern, though. She says it's a crime. For far too long, we've watched the radical left normalize threats, call for assassinations, and cheer on political violence. However, those things that she just listed there, normalizing threats, call for assassinations, and cheer on political violence, that's not the end-all be-all in terms of describing hate speech. What she was describing as hate speech is still one of those fill-in-the-blank type deals, and that's what we don't want. So yes, there are certain things you can't say, but hate speech should not be the criteria, and the government should not necessarily be the one deciding unless you violate clearly. I mean, for instance, assault. Assault is not necessarily a physical assault. It can be even a credible threat of violence or intimidation. That's already a crime. She also added that free speech protects ideas, debate, even dissent, but it does not and will not ever protect violence. If I'm not mistaken, like I said, the threat of violence is already a crime that's known as assault. There's laws against inciting riots or calling for the overthrow of the government. Hard to believe a competent AG would confuse that with whatever she thinks is hate speech. Who gets to define hate speech again? Where does the federal government even get the right to prosecute someone for hate speech? Where does she get the authority to tell businesses that they have to do anything? She may have walked this back after catching flack from all corners on this, but the fact that she had to be called out is a problem. Trump hasn't given any indication that he has a problem with her statement, and that should be a concern for everybody. Troops in Memphis that we have there now, that's really a result of the failure of the governor and legislature to do its job. Now, this failure goes back decades. It's not just the current administration, the current legislature. Memphis has been a dangerous place for decades. Why has the state never used its power to go in there and help enforce the laws? Why have they allowed prosecutors that don't do their job to hold their job? Remember, the counties are a creation of the state. And the state it's not the same scenario as, with the U.S. government. The states created the federal government. That's not the same case at the state level. The state can force the counties to follow the state law, and that's what they should do. Also, a lot of people may welcome it right now. They say, hey, it's going to make things better. What about when the troops leave? If you haven't dealt with the core problems, when the troops leave, all the problems are going to come back. And that wraps up this installment of the Informer Report. If you have a news story that you want to alert us to, be sure to send us an email at tninformer.tv@gmail.com.